Most of us are very familiar with the concepts of plate tectonics, the ocean floor, and how the continents are formed. And the oceans as basalt, the continents as andesitic, the whole process how the ocean differentiates into the archipelagos and eventually the collision boundaries we have under tectonics. So we have a fair idea, and of course we also know about the seafloor spreading concept, how the more on the ocean floor starts to have volcanism, it spreads out, the age of the oceans decreasing away from the more. So we are pretty familiar with this. Now, linked to all of this could be this question: discuss the formation of oceans. And I could make it a bit more specific if I ask you, account for how the Atlantic Ocean opened up. So we have had such questions, like the one we had around Appalachians mountain building, where many of you would have floundered. Why? Because you did not specifically study Appalachians. So we're trying to account for those type of questions which seem to be peripheral but very much within the syllabus that the optional subject lists down under geography. Right? So discuss the formation of the oceans and account for how the Atlantic Ocean opened up. Now, there are two sets of concepts here. So for your understanding, I have divided them. One is the general concepts. They apply to all oceans. You understand the idea of crustal differentiation. Relate this with partial melting and how the mantle peridotite converts into basalt and the ocean crust is formed. Link this with concepts of more formation. The more, the axial rift valley. Linked to that is seafloor spreading hypothesis. You understand how a divergent boundary develops. So we have a continent that stretches, that thins, develops rifts. It ultimately fractures open, and we have a nascent sea like the Red Sea that opens up into a proper ocean. So you understand the development of divergent boundary. Now, linked to all of this is a concept called as Wilson cycle. Some of you would know this. It's essentially telling us the whole sequence of how the process starts with a small nascent ocean like Red Sea, and the process ends towards the ocean subduction, the OC margins, and ultimately the continental fusion. So the Wilson cycle kind of traces starting from the divergent boundary development. It includes the proper ocean formation. It talks about a subduction margin development, and ultimately OC and the CC type of collisions. It talks about stages like there is an embryo stage, an adolescent stage, a young stage, a mature stage, and a senile stage. The embryo stage starts from the first divergent boundary and the development of the Red Sea. It ends in the OC collision and the CC collision along with the continental fusion. So this sequence is called as the Wilson cycle. So Wilson cycle is very much part of understanding how the oceans open up. So these are the more generic concepts. Now you have to transfer the concept into the Atlantic Ocean specifics. So we had Hallam and Moore. They traced the exact development and expansion opening up of the Atlantic Ocean. They say it starts with the Pangaea 1. So now some of you know this as the supercontinent called as Rodinia. Pangaea 1, Precambrian times, 500, 600, 700 million years ago. The Pangaea breaks up in early Paleozoic, and the Pangaea again starts colliding, and we have the Hercynian and the Caledonian mountains forming that close the Atlantic Ocean. So it starts with Pangaea 1. Pangaea 1 breaks up into an old Atlantic Ocean, and again the continents collide back. The Atlantic Ocean closes with the formation of mountains like the Appalachians. Then we have the next supercontinent called as the Pangaea 2 around the Carboniferous Permian times. Now this is the one that Wegener talks about. So Pangaea 1, the earlier supercontinent, and now another one called as Pangaea 2, the later supercontinent. And Pangaea 2 starts breaking up around 200 million years ago, and around 180 mid Mesozoic times it actually breaks apart and moves. So in the process of the Pangaea 2 breaking up, we have the Atlantic Ocean forming again. The Atlantic Ocean that we have today, it started opening up around the Jurassic times, around 200 million years, and over the years, what happened was, first Africa separated from Eurasia and North America. It opens up. Then North America and Eurasia open up. Formation of North Atlantic and the Labrador Sea. This was around 100 to 80 million years ago. So the North American continent separates out. Then the North Atlantic Ocean forms along with the Labrador Sea. The Baffin Bay and the rest are created till as late as 40-50 million years ago. And then we have the South Atlantic also forming properly. And the South Atlantic, where the South American continent separates from Africa. This also started during the Mesozoic times. And ultimately, as of now, the Atlantic Ocean continues to expand. So I am sure you know this concept. We have North America, we have South America, Eurasia, we have Africa, the more in between, and the more is an active more. And the expansion of the more is expanding the Atlantic Ocean. And of course, the Atlantic Ocean does not have active subduction margins along its coast. So net effect is Atlantic Ocean is expanding. So this was the specifics of the Atlantic Ocean, how it opened up. So again, referring back to the textbook, you may open up page number 50. Page 50, the section is plate tectonics and the actual continental displacement. So the second paragraph talks about though the sequence of events of continental displacement based on evidences of paleomagnetism and seafloor spreading is available only for the last 200 million years, but on basis of general mechanism of tectonics and evidence from the continents, the sequence of events very constructed. So the studies were not just based on the Atlantic Ocean floor. Why Atlantic Ocean, I think all of us again know, as a part of subduction margins and seafloor spreading, the Atlantic Ocean is not older than 200 million years ago, 200 million years. So we have to study rocks of the continents also, and the mechanism, if we understand, we're able to infer what could have happened. So it says Valentine and Moore and Hallam. So Hallam, Moore, you can add the name Valentine here. 1970s, they attempted to reconstruct the chronological sequence of the continents, ocean basins from the beginning to present time. About 700 million years ago, all land masses were united. This was the Pangaea 1. Look at the next page. First line it says, Pangaea 2 is formed around 300 million years. And according to Hallam, the second Pangaea began to break up during early Jurassic, and the Northwest Africa broke away from North America. So first, the North America breaks away from Africa and the North Atlantic is formed. And thereafter, we have the other development. It says, the separation of South America and Africa was accomplished during the Cretaceous period. So South Atlantic and North Atlantic are happening, but the South Atlantic part, when the South America separates out, this happened towards later Paleozoic. So around 60 million years ago. The next paragraph, the opening of North Atlantic was accomplished in many phases. The North Atlantic itself went through phases. Separation of North America from Africa, Europe, Greenland, and then Labrador Sea at around 80 million years ago, and so on. The last line says, the spreading of Labrador Sea stopped by Middle Miocene. So by around 40 million years, the North Atlantic was more or less made. So if you look at the next page, page 52, you have the depiction of how the continents must have broken up. And in the summary below the diagram is a good, nice write-up. The evolution of continents. Number 1 is Triassic period, number 2 is late Triassic, late Jurassic, and page 53, it says, page 53, first column, it says, figure 2.17 depicts the chronological events of Atlantic Ocean during the past 700 million years. The Atlantic Ocean first broke up, first Pangea, America, Africa began to move in divergent boundaries. Then again, they start closing. Because of closing of Atlantic Ocean, Appalachian Mountains and North America are formed. The Atlantic Ocean again began to open up around 150 million years. And that was second Pangea now opening up. And it says that this results in the movement of the continents in the opposite direction. So I think you have a fair idea now about the events with the dates mentioned. I'll suggest you could pause the video, look at the write-up and jot them down. Thereafter, a suggestion on how your answer may be organized. So I think most of you know about the format I have discussed under answer writing. Your answers must have diagrams. Your answers must have hardcore geographical content, geographical terms, geographical concepts, relate it to processes of geomorphology and tectonics, and relate it to something more recent. So that's the format. I think most of you know this. So we have introduction, maybe one line if you can add something around Atlantic Ocean, a small diagram depicting the ocean or something from the process. It could also be a schematic. Then a couple of concepts, maybe a paragraph or two on just mentioning some of the general concepts. The second could be tracing the actual Atlantic Ocean. That will require, if this is the question, I'll suggest have more weightage on the Atlantic Ocean because of its specifics. So the generic aspects could be one section, the Atlantic Ocean could be another section. And I'll suggest put these facts under some kind of schematic or a table. You can elaborate some specific aspects, but put the facts with the year, with the names. Show a diagram you could take up from textbook again, some contents breaking apart, elaborate that, and finally your conclusion. In this case, the conclusion could take up how Wegener and the match of the continent coasts is related to how the Atlantic Ocean opened up. This could be a profound ending, how Atlantic Ocean and its study is in many ways the basis of the modern tectonics theory. So the content, the generic one, the specific one, and a suggested structure of how your answer may be organized. So guys, you should rewind this video a couple of times, make your notes, try and answer, and see if you can write this answer in about 2.5, 3 pages. I don't see this question for more than 25 marks. It may be 30 marks, then it spills off into 3.5 pages. So that more or less will suffice. Okay, so try this and I hope you succeed. Thank you.